This is Bean to Barstool, a podcast that looks at the intersections of craft chocolate, craft beer, and other artisan drinks. My name is David Nilsson. I'm a professional drinks writer, an advanced cicerone, the author of Pairing Beer and Chocolate, and the creator and host of this show. The music for this episode is by my dear friend, indie folk musician Anna P.S. You can find out more about Anna's music in the show notes or on annapsmusic.com. You can find links and information about our guests in the show notes as well. I hope you enjoy this episode of Bean to Barstool. I do not know much about tea. I love tea. I've been drinking tea since I was a kid, but it's been tea bags that you buy at the store or in family restaurants. Earl Grey, Constant Comment, Sleepy Time, things like that. But there's an entire world of really good tea out there, and I don't know much about it. So I was really grateful when my friend and colleague and longtime friend of Bean to Barstool, Estelle Tracy, reached out to me with the idea of doing a tea and chocolate pairing on an episode. Estelle has been leading tea and chocolate pairings as part of her pairing business with 37 Chocolates for a little while now, and she came on the show to share some of her expertise with me and with all of us. So we're going to jump right into our conversation of pairing tea and chocolate. I was recording this in my kitchen so that I could heat up water and steep the tea, so I don't have my normal microphone. You'll notice a change in the audio where I'm just using my laptop's microphone, but it should be perfectly clear for everyone to listen to. We started out by talking about how she got started with tea. Periodically throughout the conversation, you'll hear a few noises of the kitchen and the kettle being set down on the kitchen stove and things like that. And because of the time it takes to steep different teas, I have cut out some silences here. So you'll notice points where we go from introducing a tea to immediately tasting it. Obviously, some of these take a little while, but I decided not to subject you to 5 minutes of silence while we're steeping tea. You're welcome. So listen in as Estelle Tracy and I talk about pairing good tea with good chocolate.
So first of all, thanks for having me back. How did I get into tea and chocolate pairings? Well, like many things, it was sort of an accident. So a couple of years ago, I visited a new coffee shop slash cafe in Wilmington, Delaware, called Scout Cafe. So summers tend to be slower for me, and that's where I do more things with my kids. And I took my oldest daughter to Scout Cafe, and I had a nice time. And I accidentally left my tote bag with my precious notebook in there. So my oldest daughter is a bit of a handful, let's just say. So these are things that typically happen. And the owner of the coffee shop, we had a common friend. He actually offered to meet in person and return the bag with a notebook in it. And we met on his day off, and we kind of sat down and like, oh, actually, maybe there's something we can do together. I believe he's the one who brought up tea. And I thought, oh, okay. So now this tote bag that I left behind led to a tea and chocolate tasting. So I want to say it was almost 2 years ago when we hosted our first two tea and chocolate tastings. It was a new location and a new offering, and we had perhaps like 5 to 6 people show up to those two events. And from there, we kind of took a break. And Nick is the owner of Scout Cafe. He sent me a Instagram direct message a few months ago. I want to say last winter, and he says, "Hey, how about we're doing it? How about we do this again?" I'm like, "Sure, let's do it again. Same format, for pairing." Except what happened is that we sold out over a month in advance. Scout Cafe is a really small place, and we are limited to 26 seats. After that, there's literally not enough chairs nor space to seat anybody. So I think we put our event up in November. Then January we sold out. With 24 people on the wait list. And we're like, okay, Nick, what do? We have to do this again. And so we did it again and again. And I think again, so we had 3 or 4 events so far this year. Every single one of them has sold out in a way that really neither one of us expected, especially after our initial kind of like lukewarm response, And I read a while ago that apparently Gen Z is all into tea houses now, that tea is really having a moment in this country. So personally, I am here for it, but this is kind of the story of how I started doing tea and chocolate pairing kind of regularly. Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about what tea is. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
most of us here in America grew up with diner tea bags and constant comment and all that kind of thing, and those definitely have their nostalgic appeal, but this is something totally different. So tell us
Oh
what
yeah.
tea actually is.
Tea is an interesting word. And you being a writer, you're a word person. So let's talk about the word here. In the US, the word tea refers to any type of herb like you would brew in hot water. And it could be peppermint, it could be like lemon verbena, chamomile, as well as green tea and oolong or black tea. The reality is, so this is why it's interesting. In France, we have two different words. Tea, so thé, is actually only refers to what in the US we would refer to real tea, which are the leaves of the Camellia sinensis plant, which is like a shrub growing, in China, Taiwan, Japan, and white tea, green tea, oolong tea, black tea, pu'er tea, these are all made from the actual same leaf. What changes, the difference between all of this is the oxidation and in case of like pu'er, some fermentation there. But it's really has to do with how processed the leaves have been after being harvested. When we talk about chamomile, I mentioned, it could be linden tea, peppermint, those are not considered technically tea. In French, we refer to them as tisane, and that's a word you actually see in the US as well in some like food publication. So it's spelled Tisane. And so that is more an infusion of a caffeine free leaf. And you can make a tisane of like edible leaves. So when we're do it today, what we're doing about like the pairing we're doing today, we're focusing on Camellia sinensis, so real tea, and we go over those. And that it's very, I'm sure you've heard that term, and if you, this phrase, or if you haven't, now is the time. But words create words, and
Yes.
I find that it's really, when we're promoting our tea and chocolate tasting. They've been doing very well. I'm seeing that the people don't know the difference between, like what has caffeine, what doesn't have caffeine. And so part of here, the education I try to do at the beginning of my events is that trying to explain, okay, we are going to taste the leaf of the same shrub. And then we usually end on like an infusion more than a true tea. But it's interesting. Like tea culture is really not the way, say, coffee culture or beer culture or wine culture is. And I don't know if you know that, David, but so some of the talks I give on the culture of chocolate history, what I discovered as part of like the past, my chocolate journey somehow led me to research tea a little bit. And apparently, according to historians, a lot of the lack of familiarity or lack of acceptance or the lack of tea tradition can apparently be traced back to the Boston Tea Party, where tea became such a symbol of England that they really wanted like colonial like they wanted to find something else. Like, we are not, like, tea is for the British, we are not doing that. And apparently it's kind of like trickled down to this time and place. So
I
yeah.
remember a few years back when the U.S. women's national soccer team was playing England in the World Cup, and Alex Morgan scored a goal for the U.S. and her celebration at midfield was to put her pinky up and pretend she was sipping on a teacup as she had just scored on England.
I love it.
Yeah, so we're starting out with the Highland Wild White Tea, which, following your instructions, I've just finished steeping and poured into a cup. Tell us a little bit about this tea.
Okay, so the all the teas we're trying today are from a brand called Health and Tea that is based in Westchester, PA, so about half an hour from where I live. We are going to taste essentially different kinds of Camellia sinensis. And I wanted to start with the this Highland white tea. So David, you saw out of your jar, like how we're like, do you want to describe what you're seeing here?
Yeah, so it's, I mean, it's obviously loose leaf, and it is just like, it just looks like you dried some leaves straight off the plant. Like there's really
Exactly.
not much done to it, it doesn't appear.
Yeah, exactly. White tea is the least processed of all of them. So white tea tends to be a little bit more expensive than green tea or black tea. And if you want to maximize, the health benefits, like white tea is gonna give you that. So what's special about this particular white tea is that it is not farmed. Everything else we're trying is like, tea is like anything. It grows in a farm, right? Except, and this is where it's so exciting to me because you can see the parallel with, wild cacao that we've heard about. This tree grows in the this tea grows in the forest. And what my friend Alonso, who co-owns Health and Tea, said is that the farmer goes to the forest, picks the tea, and you know, comes back. And that's that. So we are testing really like wild tea, which is not something you stumble upon every day. I mean, I've drank so much tea. This one has been really special, I find. And so, okay. So if you go to a Health and Tea's website and you look for Highland white tea, you'll have a picture of a farmer, like you can see, like plucking something. And this is legitimately like the person who picks this tea for Health and Tea. And supposedly he's also a very spiritual man. And like when they try, so Alain and his wife Liz, when they try to get a hold on to him, like oftentimes he's like at the monastery because he aspires, like he wishes he was a monk. So
Sure.
that's the story of what you're drinking today.
So I steeped this by your instructions, 170 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
I did it for
Yes.
3 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
did a small taste, and then steeped it another minute after that to
Mm-hmm.
get just a little bit more extraction from it.
Yep.
And it is really delicate, as you're describing.
Yep.
Like in the aroma, I got a little bit of hay and like white flowers that are just starting to wilt a little bit, like just
Mm-hmm.
past their perfect freshness of fresh flowers. And then on the flavor, though, it's a lot gentler. I'm getting like
Mm-hmm.
more aroma, whereas the flavor is very, very mild.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I get more of that hay, just a tiniest, tiniest little like curve of
Mm-hmm.
acidity, but not much. Like just like a little shape on the tongue. What should I be tasting? Do you have tasting
So
notes on your side?
So yes, that's I feel no, you do a great job doing tasting notes. This is perfect. Very to me, it was very aromatic. And what's I tried this tea multiple times, at different times of the day a while ago. There's a warmth to the tea. I know it sounds like weird to say, but like the way the flavor of this white tea evolves, like it really evolves in your mouth as you go. And I thought that was very unique. And I think I like that you steep it a little more than what's recommended. So the 2 to 3 minutes, it's more recommended by the tea company. After that, it's all a personal preference. I do want to say also for people listening who want to do this, 100% use, like non-chlorinated water. Like even if you use tap water, make sure you filter it. Water is the big ingredient in tea. So you're going to taste, if there's chlorine in your water, you're going to mess everything up, right? I mean, you can do whatever you want, but if for white tea like that, I think you're going to enjoy your experience so much more if you use water that's been at least filtered, even if you're using from the tap. But I like this tea steeped like 5 to 7 minutes. Personally, I think that is really when it shows a lot of its, yeah, its aromatic potential, and you really taste different nuances as the tea goes that way. And because it is so mild and delicate in the pairing department, this is where it can be really tricky to pair this with chocolate. Because what you're working with is that, I mean, this is kind of the same way when I drink, if I get to taste a wine that is so good that to me kind of is enough, stands so much on its own. You don't want to mess whatever balance is there, right?
Right.
So this one for the chocolate is that I did try a few things, to come up with a good like a pairings that did not overshadow the tea. The danger with tea and chocolate pairing is that the chocolate over time can be overpowering for the tea, especially for white tea. So the pairing that to me was like perfect. It's Castronovo chocolates, lavender dark milk chocolate. And it is a 60% dark milk made with cacao from Tumaco. And the lavender that Denise Castronovo uses in there comes from an organic farm in Colorado. And when she was talking about her process to pick the lavender, she actually evaluated 3 different breeds, if I remember correctly. And she picked the lavender that she thought, was, she picked her favorite. When you taste that bar, the lavender is it's you get obviously the lavender notes, but at the same time you can tell this is lavender but different, and you might not be able to pinpoint it to pinpoint exactly what makes it different. It's like it's definitely lavender, but it's milder. I think with the milk chocolate also it kind of mellows out the edges of the like the strength of the lavender. But that lavender with the white tea is like the those floral aromas you were talking about, white flower, they kind of echo each other is the way I see it. So
We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, Fifth Street Brew Pub in Dayton, Ohio is one of our sponsors at Bean to Barstool and Final Gravity, our print beer zine, and they just happen to be one of my favorite hometown breweries. They're one of the only cooperatively owned breweries in the country, a testament to their community focus and support. Inside a building from the 1850s in the historic neighborhood of St. Anne's Hill, Fifth Street Brew Pub offers a warm, cozy atmosphere and excellent beer and food. And you can take your favorite beers to go with their Gem City swing tops, elegant swing top bottles filled straight from the taps with regular favorites like St. Anne's Pills and Rough Gem Farmhouse Ale, or whatever their current seasonals are. I recently had a Sage Pilsner from them that was fantastic. Sage is one of those flavors that can get away from you really quickly, but they used it in a really graceful way in this beer. Loved it. If you're in the Dayton area, head over to Fifth Street to hang out or grab beer to go, and if you're visiting Dayton, and you should, make sure Fifth Street is on your list. Cheers.
Cool. So the bar I've got, I did not have Castronovas, but I do have Manoa's dark milk with
yes.
lavender. So hopefully these should be pretty comparable to each other. Now, with every beverage pairing with chocolate, there's always some minor process differences. You know, we talk about with beer, you've got to let the chocolate melt first because the beer is
Mm-hmm.
cold. Is
Yes.
there anything unique when we're pairing with tea?
Aha. So all right. So one of my close friends is from China, and a couple of years ago she invited me to one of her friend's house for a Chinese tea ceremony. And I learned a lot from, I learned a lot, let's just say. So I was the only non-Chinese person. And so, okay, so this is what they taught me. So first of all, if you wear makeup like with lipstick, you're gonna take a napkin and you're gonna remove that. Okay. So after that, they kind of were like laughing. I mean, they were kind of teasing me, like, this is how I would drink. And they're all laughing. They say, Estelle, you can't slurp, okay? So this is like more like when you think of a coffee cupping. If you do this, if you slurp your tea, you will get so many more aromas.
So you're oxygenating all those and volatilizing all those aroma
Yeah.
compounds. Okay.
Yes, and if you're doing it, so this is interesting. If anybody has have been invited by people in China or Taiwan, or they have this type of heritage, you'll notice that Chinese and Taiwanese teacups are very small. And so my husband went to Taiwan. I want to say two times for sure, two times. Okay, so what you notice is that these are also cups from Taiwan. They're very very small. And what's interesting also, and is worth definitely worth sharing with the listeners, is that you can re-steep tea. And the health and tea teas, you can re-steep once, in my experience, but loose tea is an incredible value because you're not paying for the all the little bags that have been, processed like this. And especially you'll find that some, when I go to like a local coffee shop and I usually get a jasmine tea, that jasmine tea bag I can re-steep like twice, easy, like for a really large cup. That's it. That's a very particular tea there, but it ends up you can get a really fun experience like that. So what we were doing with my friends from China there is that as we were drinking from the small cup, the host would like add more water every time on the back into the little teapot. And so we would drink, essentially we would experience different personalities of the tea. And this is when again you're like, this is not about the right steeping time, or and more about, oh, isn't that interesting that this leaf can have so much flavor potential and can evolve, with each batch of water that you're pouring on. And that's what I found interesting. And another thing I wanted to share is that I think all of us who went into chocolate, we all have this realization, oh, well, dark chocolate doesn't have to be bitter, right? Like, that's kind of an epiphany. And with tea, I think similar things happen when you really start getting into loose tea and start finding suppliers that you trust. Is you realize that not all teas end up developing this really strong astringency, that are really going to hurt the inside of your mouth. And this is, yeah, if you have teas like that, and this was exactly the teas that my friend's friend was giving us, is that actually it would never really get to the point of astringency or bitter, but just like, oh, isn't that interesting how the flavor just keeps on evolving, so.
So I tried this with a piece of the chocolate, and it was delicious with it. What was amazing was that I found that very recognizable lavender kind of turned more into just like spice and bergamot when
Ooh.
the it combined with the tea. I felt like I got a little bit more of that almost citrus peel
Hmm.
flavor from it, and then just all those bright florals kind of came in behind. How about you? Are you tasting this along with me?
So I forgot my Castronovo bar downstairs. I have literally everything else, but I forgot that bar downstairs. So, but I have tasted it more than once. So,
Want to briefly describe that pairing?
oh yeah, well, yes. So, what's I love about that that chocolate paired with this is that you really realize how delicate a milk chocolate can be, because the milk chocolate does not like is it's singing at the same frequency as the tea. This is how I like to talk about it. The milk is very subtle, the lavender is kind of coming forward, and that's when it starts blending in with the floral notes of the tea. And to me, that pairing really makes you realize what a good milk chocolate, like how fine a bar of milk chocolate can be. That pairing to me, that highlights this. And so some people may be like, oh, they may enjoy dark chocolate more because it's more cacao and all that. But I think that pairing makes that milk chocolate, like gives the milk chocolate a good name. So,
Yeah.
all right. So I see
The
your
texture was very nice together.
yes. Also, yeah. All right. So you
So
have the oolong.
we're moving on to the Jade oolong. I'm going to begin steeping this. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the tea?
All right. So oolong. So Taiwan is really known for its oolong teas. And when Health and Tea started its company, okay, let me actually share that. So a bit about Health and Tea, the couple, it's Alain is the name of the gentleman. He's from France. And Liz is his wife, and she's from Taiwan. And when they got married, up until the moment when they got engaged and decided to get married, Alain was not a tea fan. He thought it was nothing but hot water. Then Liz, yeah, and a lot of people think that. I'm sure, I mean, yeah, if you've not had good tea, this is kind of what happens. But anyway, Alain meets the family of his wife, Liz, in Taiwan, and oolong is very popular in Taiwan. And everywhere he went, he would be served oolong tea, and oolong tea. Oolong is a partially oxidated tea, and this is because like the amount of oxidation varies so much. You're gonna have a ton of different flavor variation from one oolong tea to another. Like it's really hard to say, oh, this is what oolong tea tastes like. You can kind of do that for green tea to some degree, but oolong is like you're gonna have a lot of floral notes, and a lot of them, like you see, they're kind of rolled as little pellets like this. So it's always, it's always a nice surprise getting an oolong because every oolong is so unique. So oolong is what made Alain from Health and Tea fall in love with tea. And from the moment they started their company, you could find some oolong. So this one is the Jade oolong. I don't know that I still have it on their website. However, it's one that I really like. You can see it, like, when you look, the same thing applies when you taste tea. If you ever do participate to a formal like tea tasting, you want to look at the tea and you want to smell it and everything. And you can see here, like what they don't quite look like gunpowder tea. For those of you who've had this, they're like loosely. You can imagine the person kind of loosely rolling them and like moving on, and it's kind of green. Also, you can see. So oolong tea, you will read about oolong tea that actually 30 seconds to a minute is enough for a first sip. And what ends up happening, I'm going to actually pour this now. I'm going to put some water here. What ends up happening, and the temperature, I'm actually using the same as what I like, the same kettle, same water from the white tea. And so I'm actually steeping this straight in my little cup. I'm going to take a photo to put on Instagram later when the episode is out. You see that little by little, so the color of the water changes and those little leaves start unfurling. I think if you do 30 seconds, you don't really give a chance to the leaf to like properly expand. It's worth trying for sure, but I like to wait a little bit more so that the tea leaves are unfurling a little bit more. So this is very meditative, I find. Looking at the
It
little
does change totally visually. It started out, like you said, almost like pellets, like the texture of like grape nuts, sort of like that's how I was thinking of it. And then just that couple minutes in the hot water and it's full leaves again.
Yeah. All right. Mine starting getting flavored. Yeah. It's fun. This one is almost grassy a little bit.
We'll be right back.
Hey everyone. You may have noticed things in the world aren't awesome right now, and social media kind of reflects that. I built a lot of the following for Bean to Barstool and just for my own writing career on Instagram, but I've been getting significantly lower returns in terms of engagement on Instagram, and well, some of their recent changes don't have me thrilled for the future. So here are some ways to keep up with Bean to Barstool if Instagram and other social media platforms don't prove to be long-term viable solutions. If you do nothing else, sign up for the Bean to Barstool newsletter. You can do that by going to beantobarstool.com/newsletter-sign up. That link is in the show notes. That is a weekly email newsletter that covers all the same things we cover here on the podcast. Speaking of, subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Wherever you listen to Bean to Barstool, go there and subscribe to make sure you get notifications of new episodes. If you're a proud millennial like me and you still use an RSS feeder, you can also subscribe to our blog posts, which come out at least weekly. Also, if you are still on social media but don't love Meta right now, you can check me out over on Blue Sky. I'm on there under my personal account at David Nilsson Beer, but I do post all the Bean to Barstool content over there as well. Finally, if you want to get in touch with me directly, you can email beantobarstool@gmail.com. I am not leaving Instagram anytime soon, but these are great ways to make sure you can keep up with what I have going on. Stay safe and take care of each other.
Yeah, it honestly feels like if we took the tea we just had, the white tea, and just like turned up the color saturation,
Yes.
on the flavors and the aromas, so it's just like fuller,
Mm-hmm.
but this similar basic profile.
Yep. It has a bit more of an edge.
So I was going to say it has a touch of a honey-like note very quietly, which brings up, is it ever appropriate to sweeten these teas or no?
So, people do. Yeah, if you like to add honey, sugar, it's, to be honest, it can dial up the flavor. I mean, sugar is a, flavor enhancer. So you could add a touch of tea or sugar and honey. Personally, I don't put any sugar in any of my teas, and so I don't know if I mentioned that before, but my family is from Turkey, and I started drinking tea when I was 3 years old, and I remember the day my mom made a decision to stop sweetening her tea. She was kind of like she was informing her friend that she was done putting sugar in her tea, and I think I was somehow in elementary school, and I thought this was like the most like badass thing anybody could do is not sweeten their tea. And that's the last time I sweetened any type of tea or even coffee after that. But so I don't have this reflex because of seeing my mother being so proud of like bypassing the tea. But to be fair, I think it can make things tastier. so but it's all a habit. And the chocolate to some degree will bring some of the will bring sweetness. So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
kind of what I rely on. So
I think we definitely
right.
saw that with that first pairing, with using the dark milk that has a little sweetness to it. It did kind of provide a platform for those aromas to take root a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you usually sweeten your tea, David?
A little.
Or
I'll usually use a little bit of honey,
mm-hmm.
but again, I'm usually using more pedestrian tea. So if I'm going to become a tea snob, Estelle, we'll see.
Not snob, no. Tea enthusiast. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. But again, this is all, I mean, we all have, we always say, how, how we grew up matter, what we tasted matter. And the thing is that I just have been sugar-free in my tea for so long. I don't even think of it, and it's not like I don't do this out of seeking approbation from, like a metaphorical or, food police. I just genuinely have developed a taste for this, and I don't think about it, So, but when I accidentally do, for one reason or another, I'm like, yeah, well, it does make the tea taste better. That's for sure. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I don't think this is the
Mm-hmm.
influence of the bar we just tasted, but I do get a little bit of a like lavender or other like Mediterranean floral, like a very like arid floral aroma.
like oregano.
Yeah, there you go. Oregano.
Yeah, yeah. I can totally taste it. And it's funny, I have other oolongs, but this I forgot that this Jade oolong tasted like that. And I've been sipping on it as the tea has been steeping. It does become slightly grassier and more oregano-y as it goes, but it never gets completely like, like I make a face.
Yeah.
So, but
Thyme, a
yeah,
bit of thyme as well.
yeah. Excuse me?
Thyme as well as an herb.
Oh,
Oregano,
yeah.
thyme,
Yeah.
both. Yeah. Our oregano that we grow in our garden here is, I don't know what's in our soil, but it ends up so spicy. Like
Hmm.
it's actually like almost like mustard bitter or mustard spicy on the tongue.
Huh.
So the aroma is great, but it's quite sharp in our soil. I don't know why.
Hmm.
So you suggested pairing this with a Dominican Republic bar, and I, again, as with the first one, I did not have the bar you were working with, so I'm going to be
Mm-hmm.
using Stranger craft chocolate out of the Ukraine. There's
Mm-hmm.
70% Dominican Republic Oco Caribe bar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What are you pairing with there?
So I paired it with Amano Chocolates Dos Rios, and I am tasting it right now. So Amano Dos Rios, for those of you who may not know, to me, they are like the one bar you need to try once in your life, at least. It is made from Dominican cacao, but at the same time, Amano has exclusive rights on this very beans. And from what I understand, is during the fermentation process, the chocolate develops kind of it can't lavender, citrusy. Some people would say blueberry, but it ends up being a very mild dark chocolate. If the chocolate is is actually warm, like with all my tea, the chocolate started getting a little softer. It is very, again, very aromatic. You have some floral. You do have that like it's hard to necessarily pinpoint. Some people will go straight to blueberry, but it's like it's straddling between citrus and a fruit, citrus and an herb, and you're trying to like to see which herb is that, which berry is that. But the best way I can say it is, it's like, if to me it's like the essence of like the first bar we tried, the Castronovo chocolate with the lavender. The lavender comes from the lavender, right? But here it's like you are looking for what this bar has been infused it with, and it is nothing. Like there is a touch of vanilla, but with Amano bars, it's always very subtle. But it is, yeah, again, it's so many aromas. The floral, I mean, there is a floral note in there. And this is a bar that I love pairing with white wine, and I love pairing with tea because it is just so mellow. There's barely any bitterness, and it's really a really unique dark chocolate. And I've tasted this bar for almost 10 years on and off. I have carried it in inventory for years and years and years. And I remember when I shared this chocolate with Alain at their house, trying it. I believe it must have been the Jade Oolong too. I remember he said, "Now this is fine chocolate." Like this was the only dark chocolate on the table that this is it. And he just like I remember he just like his mind has started to wander. And that is the power of this bar to like, not just to us in chocolate, but for people who are trying this for the first time, it has a heck of an effect. And because it is completely different from any dark chocolate you've ever had. So yeah, and like the way it blends with this is all these aromas are blending really nicely,
Yeah.
and it dials up the chocolate
This
flavors.
bar from Stranger is wonderful. I've said several times over the last year or so,
Mm-hmm.
Stranger and Sisters A, which are both Ukrainian makers, I think are the two best makers in the world right now. Like I think they're both
Wow.
just making astounding chocolate. And
Mm-hmm.
this bar is beautiful. It's much more floral than I'm usually expecting from the Dominican Republic. Like you
Hmm.
described, we usually are getting those like berry descriptions, that red, red berry, things like that. This has very, very little acidity. It's much more like soft, broad florals. And then pairing it with the tea, it didn't really alter the flavor so much as kind of sharpened the edges a little bit.
Hmm.
So where you had those very soft floral aromas, it felt like this kind of provided a frame for those and sharpened all the focus on it.
Hmm.
It's lovely. Okay, so next up we're going to do the matcha.
Yay.
So I've got this one little, you send me like these little packets. Is one of these for
Yes.
a particular volume then of water?
So if you're doing it hot, it will be like 8 ounce. Yeah.
8 ounces. Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about matcha?
Yes, I was drifting. I was feeling very contemplative and meditative. So matcha, I think a lot of people know matcha. It's certainly is having a moment, and I don't know if you heard about the fact that matcha, there might be a shortage of matcha, ceremonial grade matcha in Japan. So this comes to us from Japan. It is a green tea, and this is the only tea today that we are essentially going to consume the leaves whole. So the way you don't brew matcha, you for those of you who want to use that technical term, you're making a slurry. So you're making a slurry of matcha, meaning that it's not going to get dissolved. The powder is going to be suspended in your water. And so matcha has really been used, for to make things green, and it's been very popular in desserts. Matcha latte has been a thing for a while now, and yeah, I think a lot of people are very familiar with this one. So yeah, I don't know that matcha is necessarily even my favorite of all tea, but I think there is an ease of preparation. Like I think one of the that's my guess. Some of the popularity, in my opinion, is probably explained by the fact that this is so easy to make. You just you want to put a little bit of water and whisk it as you go. Traditionally in Japan they use the bamboo whisk, and but you can use, honestly, I mean, you can use a spoon, and it's like you just want to like mix it nicely as you go. I don't know if I
The
did.
color is striking. I'll put some photos
Yes.
up when we release this.
Yeah.
It looks like, and this might not sound appetizing initially, but it looks like if you were painting with green paint and then you put that in the water, like
Oh,
to
yes.
rinse your brush. It's like a
Yeah.
very deep green.
Yeah. 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 And you can see why, like, this is a natural coloring, essentially. There are culinary matchas, like, you can make things green without resorting to chemistry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Matcha is also like has been a popular inclusion, I find, in white
Yes.
chocolate,
Uh,
Yeah. So,
yeah, I always like pairing white chocolate matcha bars with hazy IPAs. They work
I
really well.
know. I know. And I have to tell you that. So we were coming up with pairings at Victory. I saw in your zine, I have the zine version, right, of the pairing guide, and I saw there's a photo in there where you have like the matcha bar on top, and I looked at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I had a matcha bar at home, like I could have tried it. But next time, Kesho makes a great matcha bar.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the one you're working with, right? The Kesho?
Yeah, I love everything. Keisho has been a favorite of pairings for me lately.
Yeah.
But this one we can pair. Okay, it's perfect. So this one we can pair with a Keisho dark milk yuzu bar. So I love that we stay in the Japanese theme by doing that. So this is a dark milk bar, 56%, and Liang uses yuzu powder in here, and yuzu is also another, I think, has been Yuzu has had a moment also, like in the culinary world for a while. It's a very floral citrus that has a lot of complexity. And this chocolate, so when it melts, you get a little bit of citrus, but as the chocolate melts, it's like the yuzu just takes over, and you are left with this very clear yuzu aroma. And in general, I would say that matcha goes well with citrusy chocolate. So with this yuzu, I think it's just perfection.
So I'm actually pairing this with Mocha Origins lemon ginger.
Yeah,
So same basic concept, but different
yeah.
bar. The aroma on this matcha, first I got seaweed,
Mm-hmm.
and then it got into more of like a toasty sesame note beneath that. The palate, I feel like it's a little flatter than the aroma is, and I get just a touch of bitterness as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm going to pair it with the bar here. And this is a familiar bar. I know Estelle and I have both talked about this bar before with different pairings. I've used it in quite a few professional pairings. I think the flavor of the matcha definitely benefits from the bar. It kind of brings some of those aromas back forward that had flattened out a little bit on the palate for me.
Yeah, and the yuzu and matcha, they're very complementary. I find here get a bit of grassy. For me, this cup tastes a bit grassy, and then you get the lemon, the yuzu, and then the grassy and the yuzu, and I find it to be a very evocative pairing. This one,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think in this bar, the one I'm working with, the ginger, is doing a lot of the lifting there.
Yeah, and matcha, it's again, I really do think the popularity is due to the ease of preparation and the color. But I can't say, like we've had a few cups now. It's not going to be my go-to tea, for instance. Like I'm still in awe of that wild white tea. That one is just poetry in a cup, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Matcha is a little bit more straightforward, um, but it's popular. So, and it's easy to prepare, like if you have, if I do a tasting online, for instance, I know that matcha, you could even do it with cold water, frankly, like it's going to be easy to prepare, and it's going to be satisfying and not too messy. So it's nice to include that as well. And there is the familiarity as opposed to almost everything else. You don't have to explain matcha, I find, with a lot of people.
All right, so we're going to move on
All right.
to the Kyoto Hojicha.
Yes. I'm a fan of
This is
Hojicha.
another visually looks very distinctive.
All right. What does it look like? What do you think? Tell us
So,
more. Yes.
color-wise, this is more browns than the
Yes.
greens from the others. And
Yes.
it's got like what look like little bits of like stick or stalk in there. It's more feels like it's
Yes.
shredded in strips more than in the clumps that we were getting from the oolong.
All right. Have you heard of Hojicha before?
I have, yeah. I actually have
Okay.
a chocolate bar from Somerville made with Hojicha.
Great. Thank you for bringing that up. Dandelion chocolate has a drinking chocolate flavored with Hojicha as well. All right. So let's talk about what it is. Hojicha is roasted green tea. And so the aroma, like it's very, to me, they're like this feels like almost like baked good, fall, crushed leaves. Like it's really, this is a fall tea, in my opinion. Like the aromas are very warm compared to like, like the
Yeah.
matcha, for instance, right? And the brown color indeed. So what happens during this roasting process is that some of the like antioxidants get degraded, but also the caffeine content goes down. And you'll find that if you're very sensitive to or just sensitive enough to caffeine, Hojicha is going to be very easygoing on your body because the caffeine content has gone down quite a bit. And the yeah, the taste, everything is like so warm. So this is interesting because it's probably my go-to tea these days, but I find that it's, different people have different tastes, and Nick of Scout Cafe, he's a good sport for letting me use this tea because he really doesn't, he's not a Hojicha fan. So, but what appeals to me is like the roasty flavor, that kind of, this really evokes like a slice of warm cake, with the heat on, as maybe seeing the frost outside, kind of melting in the morning. Like it's just
Yeah,
very,
when you said fall leaves, I feel like I get a lot of those dry, crunchy leaf smells, some dry hay, like a lot of
mhm.
those comforting fall aromas.
Sometimes I feel it's a bit chestnutty, roasted chestnuts also.
Sure. Yeah,
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 yeah. That's a
yeah.
good one.
So roasted chestnuts is fresh in my head because with my family, that was our fall tradition. We did pick chestnuts and ate a lot of them.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's an aroma that is very familiar.
It's funny because roasted chestnuts are this thing that gets referenced here around Christmas, and yet I don't think most people actually do it or have them. I've had roasted chestnuts a few times, but it's not a
Mhm.
common tradition, even though it gets tossed around during the holidays.
Yeah. I mean, the US used to be a chestnut country, and there was a blight, I'm going to say maybe 100 years ago, and chestnut kind of faded in the background. And like, I wonder if that's big reason why, there was once this tradition, but not anymore. Because now if you
Sure.
go to the grocery store, they're imported from Italy a lot of times. Like you find that around like Thanksgiving and Christmas, but that does remain like a specialty food, I find. Yeah.
So this one, per your instructions, I only steeped for 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and I've
That
already
was.
got good color from that, kind of like a orange brown.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It really does have a pleasant aroma. So
Yeah.
this morning, while we're recording, it is rainy and gray here. So these are very
Mm.
comforting aromas, along with the kind of cozy morning.
Yeah. Almost like vanilla almost. Like this is, I'll tell you right now, like one of the big reason I'm a fan of this tea is that because it's really like, mm, not really, so far it's not really bitter for me, but it's roasty note is what is taking over, and that warmth of the tea and those roasty note or chestnut vanilla whatever, like you can start, it's easy to come up with pairings for that. My favorite pairing for the Hojicha is the Hogarth's chocolate, the Anzac biscuit. So if
I've got their Yanduya bar
that's
here.
another, yeah, the hazelnut, like anything with hazelnut or coconut or oats, uh, maybe maple, milk chocolate, plain milk chocolates. That would go so well here. What I love about the Anzac, so it has little bits of oats and coconut here, and what that does is the tea brings some of the like golden syrup notes from the bar. And as the chocolate melts, you have the little bits of coconut and oats. And you do have that sensation of like finishing up a cookie.
Sure.
Mhm. Yeah, for me, it really brings
Oh, wow.
kind of the cookie note. Oh, it didn't work?
No, it did. It's
Ah, okay.
I'm trying to make sense of this.
Okay.
It brings forward like so I'm having that with the hazelnut bar from Hogarth.
Yeah.
And with the tea, it brings forward like a fruity flavor. Trying to identify what I'm tasting, but that is surprising based on the base flavors in each of them.
Mm-hmm. You bring that up because we paired I think both of us did a pairing series with Argan Cove a couple of years ago, and I had suggested we did a tea and chocolate pairing, I want to say, or like wine and tea, I forget now, but I thought this would work well with Argan Cove's Messiah, and it did. But so that Messiah bar also has like nutty, slightly citrus notes and has a very creamy texture. And the tea also brought some of the, like, turned the chocolate fruity somehow. And I did not expect that. And it was good, but I thought the tea would push the nutty note nuttier, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for me, I'm getting trying to zero in. It's more like a deep, like purple berry, not with acidity, no tartness, like that sweet, deep, like blackberry or
Yeah.
Concord grape, like a
Yes.
really unusual kind of very, very soft, sweet berry flavor.
Okay. And here,
It's
like
very pleasant.
yeah, go. I mean, that's what we want. And you'll find this with tea and chocolate is that what you're trying to avoid is anything overpowering the other, especially with the milder tea, like the white teas. But everything I find is like, yeah, that works, sure, you know. And then of course you have different. There are some that works a little bit more than others.
Yeah, no, that was good. I think that was the first one. The previous three pairings were all very naturally, gently complementary. Like they were easy, good combinations. This is the first one that is very unexpected,
Mm-hmm.
and it's good. But I'm curious what the alchemy was there that is pulling out those flavors when I'm not tasting those in either the tea or the chocolate by itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's my favorite tea so far.
Ah,
I think. I don't know. That might
yeah.
change.
Yeah, and again, this is so super personal, and yeah, Nick from Scout is like, he indulges me, but it's not his thing. Yeah.
All right. Next up is the Genmaicha. Tell us about
Yes.
this tea.
The game matcha has a good story also. Okay, game matcha, a green tea, and the green tea, the green tea is it's not oxidated, but it's going to be either steam or pan fried, and it keeps the leaves keeps the green color. And the Genmaicha was apparently developed during a time of duress where the tea harvest wasn't that great, and they decided in Japan to essentially find a new filler to extend to like stretch the green tea. The same idea again, do you have how it was invented? It's like, okay, time of hardship, we gotta be creative. And what they did is like they cut the green tea with roasted puff rice, and if you smell it, you will smell that puffy roastiness. And the thing is, it was good, and it's still something that people enjoy today. And I found that some people, that's like there's one barista here who said like that is absolutely her favorite tea. You'll find some of the green tea, but like the rice is like bringing its own notes, and I found it to be a very interesting. Like it's a very, yeah, it's a fun twist on green tea. Let me try to. I'm gonna get mine too. So again, matcha, I do find that you want to definitely not overstep it. It can get a little bit bitter. And
Okay.
what I like to pair it with those roasty notes. So this is, I'm gonna give credit where credit is due. I kind of did it, I won't say backward, but Genmaicha, I didn't think I was gonna pair with it. I used it at my last tea and chocolate pairing, and it all started with the chocolate, the Keisho's black sesame white chocolate, and it says underneath light roasted sesame. So the this came from the pairing idea came from an Instagram conversation with Lizzie Kate Teas. It's a tea shop in Kirkland, Washington. So Lizzie Kate Teas. And she suggested to pair this with game matcha. And I thought that is brilliant because where we're going with this is that we want to pair the roastiness coming from the puff rice here with the roastiness of the black sesame, the toasty. So you do toasted and toasted. And again, you're staying really Japanese with those flavors. I really like that a lot.
Well, just smelling this, what immediately comes to mind for me is corn nuts. Have you ever had like toasted corn nut snacks?
I don't know.
That's definitely an American thing.
Okay. I don't think I've had that.
All right.
All right.
Almost ready here.
And so what tell us what you're pairing with too.
Yes, I'm going to be pairing this with Monsoon Chocolate, previous guest on this show, Monsoon's Blue Corn Atoll White Chocolate. So they are using blue corn from Pueblo of Santa Ana, Native American in New Mexico, and they do this toasted blue or this blue corn, which interestingly, there's a brewery that also works with this same reservation's blue corn.
Oh, yeah.
Bow and Arrow Brewing in Albuquerque is a native-owned brewery, and they work with the same corn for a beer that they do called Native Land, which is like a national collaboration they do with a bunch of different breweries. And any money from the sale of this beer, wherever it's brewed at different breweries, goes to a local indigenous nonprofit or charity of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
The profits from it. So I've had this same corn in a beer before, and of course have it here in this bar. So this is after steeping this tea. The color is very mild. The color saturation, it's a very, very pale green. And in the aroma, I get mostly that toasted rice initially.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of overpowering the tea itself.
Yeah. Was it time of duress?
Yeah, very, very mild. That light toasted rice flavor with just a little bit of a supporting, maybe grassy, or I keep coming back to seaweed as a
Oh yeah,
flavor.
yeah.
This is a very visually striking bar. It's like a blue-gray. I don't know if you can see here. Obviously, those listening can. I'm showing it to Estelle.
Yeah, I've had it once. Yeah, I love the color of this one.
Yeah.
There's
It's
no
almost
other
like
bar like it.
like a heather gray, like that lightly purple gray.
Mm-hmm.
And what were you pairing with?
So with the Keisho black sesame white chocolate.
Right.
And so that white chocolate, so the white chocolate is super creamy. And if you really are patient enough to let the chocolate melt, you really are left with the black sesame seeds. And when you are like chewing, like crunching them, they do release a lot of toasted aromas. Like these little seeds pack a punch of flavor in there. And so that same thing that really echoes the Genmaicha. That was probably the most popular pairing when at our last tea and chocolate tasting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I might be better off with your bar if I had that. I'm not sure this is coming together real well.
Okay.
It's not bad. It's just the bar is pretty mild.
Okay.
And mostly what I'm tasting is that cocoa butter more than the blue corn. And it's fine, but it's not really bringing anything forward from this tea. So I think I would benefit from having the bar that you've got in front of you.
Well, okay. It might be fun to pair with also because the green tea is still there. You might have some luck with anything citrus as well. Like green tea and citrus in general is easygoing pairing. So it might be worth doing that. Or
Well, I tell you
anything.
what, I'm going to try the mocha ginger lemon because then you're
Yes.
also getting a little with this toasted rice. It's
Yeah.
almost like a sesame ginger like combination.
Yeah.
That is certainly fuller, a broader pairing flavor. Still don't feel like those flavors are necessarily connecting as much. I mean, honestly, this is as you're describing, based on the history of why this tea was created, it's a milder tea flavor.
Yes.
It is
Yes.
mostly that rice. So
yeah, exactly. It's a rice infusion.
we're not looking for fireworks here so much. All right. Well, our last one is the honey black.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that tea.
So this is when the honey black tea is it's how I met Ala in the first place. So just the backstory of how I met Alain and of Health and Tea. It's not Liz was not there, so they used to. So the teas used to be Health and Tea used to be carried regionally at a very large food chain of natural store. Let's put it this way. I was shopping for groceries with my family. So I live outside of Philadelphia, not a big city. And it's very rare for me to meet other people from France, like casually like this. And this guy was doing a demo of the honey black tea, and he had a badge that said Alain. And I didn't even say hello. I say, "Hey, Alain, you're French." Like that was how I said hello. And I said, "What you got?" And so he shared some of the tea. He was demoing the honey black tea. I forget if it was as a iced tea, but I tried it, and it is such a it's probably the mildest black tea I have ever tasted ever. And I thought, wow, this is far. There's not 1 ounce of bitterness in there. It's You can really go heavy on the dosage and add a little bit more leaves if you wanted. Um, and yeah, so I ended up buying that tea, and I still keep buying it. This is the black tea I use when I do a tea and chocolate tasting, like online. Like before I did those events at Scout Cafe. I did offer like as part of corporate events. That's something I would offer for some, like usually I would have team where they don't want to do wine and chocolate. Do you have something special? And tea and chocolate would be what I would bring. And I like using this whole, and I still do, because number one, it challenges people's perception of what is black tea, what it should taste like. And again, it goes back to, this is a very forgiving tea. You want to steep it for like 5 minutes, but you can go 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's okay. You're not gonna have you know, it's not gonna turn your stomach. And also on that topic, like I would say that, okay, these teas are all either organic, USDA organic certified, or they have the Taiwanese slash European, because the standards are apparently similar, but or they meet the organic certification for in Taiwan. So I find that this is personal, but I find that tea is definitely one of those ingredients that is worth getting organic, because as the bushes are sprayed, like the leaves are going to absorb everything. So you are essentially, I don't want to consume an infusion of pesticides along with my tea. So this is definitely worth it. And again, loose tea is really a very good value. This is one of those things where the good stuff is actually less expensive than the like the
Oh,
less good
sure.
stuff, because the by ounce, like you are paying for packaging when you buy tea bags. And I get it. It's more, it's a little bit more messy and all that, but the quality is better. You get a better value, and you can re-steep your tea bag, your little tea at least once. So this is, yeah, and it's very meditative if this is some lifestyle you want to have. But like, I don't remember being so peaceful, at the other. I wasn't stressed out, but like doing this pairing, I'm just like staring at my things and be content.
Yeah.
It feels good.
Well, I've got a few minutes left on the steep for this one. So while we're waiting on that,
Yeah.
this is a question I get a lot of times at beer pairings, and sometimes it's a frustrating one to answer. So I'm curious if you have anything to give on this. But
Oh,
if people are going to approach pairing tea and chocolate casually and they just want some broad guidelines, do you have
yes.
any sort of broad recommendations for things to pair?
Yes. So I would say white tea, a floral milk chocolate, like a good, like, a good milk chocolate. Yeah. Let's say white tea, milk chocolate, those floral notes like lavender, but it could be something else. Green tea, without knowing more. anything, something with citrus, dark chocolate with citrus, milk chocolate with citrus, citrus. Because again, you have, a lot of the green tea, you have that grassiness, and the lemony, the citrus really helps balance it out. Black tea, it's exactly like something with like spices, but not like necessarily chili or anything like that. For the last one, the honey black tea, I'll be pairing with Silk Road by Cantu, which is a dark chocolate with 12 different spices. And some of the spices include fennel seeds, ginger, cardamom, rose, star anise. Like this is, and cloves, yes. Yeah, some of them are like chai spices, like so some like I mean, with black tea you can really definitely do dark chocolate with spices. That's going to be, the spices are going to help bridge, the chocolate and the tea. And then the one tea also that we haven't touched on is the pu'er tea. So that's a category of its own. Like I think it's not an entry level tea. This is fermented tea, and it's one, when you have access to a good source of pu'er, it can be very good, but it smells funky.
How is
It
that
doesn't
spelled?
I'm sorry, Puerh, and there is an apostrophe in there, pure. I mean, those tea cakes, they are like press cakes, and they can go for like hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. I did meet at a tea show a woman from China whose sister developed an obsession for pu'er tea. And she said, there is a lot of like fake pu'er on the market. And so she really developed relationship with a couple of farmers, I believe. That I have found really good success with pairing with a very bold dark chocolate. And the one I have in mind here is Askinosi's Ecuador bar. That bar is also, that's a good bar to bring up pairing, to have in your back pocket with like the black tea also, because that bar it's very fudgy, it's very strong, it stands on its own, but it does have a little bit of like citrusness, like a bit of brightness, a bit of floral hiding in there somewhere. And I found that this goes well with those like really bolder black teas. So loose guidelines, but I think, you if you start there, I think you can have a very pleasant tea party with your friend.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, the chocolate I'm going to be pairing is Somerville's spiced dark chocolate, 65% Ecuadorian cacao with
Mm-hmm.
cinnamon, anise, orange, pepper, and annatto.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
All right, so I just poured this tea out of the strainer,
Mm-hmm.
steeped for 5 minutes. Obviously,
Right.
much darker in color than our previous ones.
Yeah.
And this, not to be reductive, but I feel like if people are used to drinking bagged tea, this is probably the most familiar aroma. Like it starts out with kind of a classic
Yeah.
darker tea aroma.
And I believe it's their bestseller, if I'm not mistaken. Or at least one of their best-selling tea, the most approachable, and also it's good as a cold brew. Like as an iced tea, it's very popular.
It's very mild,
Mm-hmm.
yet I'm getting that like dried hay foundational flavor. Yeah, that seems like a nice supportive pairing partner for, feels like that's going to let the bar shine and kind of support it and boost it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to pull out the bar. Somerville is another former guest on Bean to
Yep.
Barstool. At least probably a couple times I think we've had Eric on here.
Yeah. Yeah, I like their bars.
They operate out of a brewery, so they do a lot of fun collaborations with the brewery.
Yeah.
Now, that's really nice together.
Oh, good. It sounds like you are tasting Cantu's Soul Sister over there. So
And what?
like you don't you I have the Cantu Silk Road. You have a very similar,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And that does, I mean, it does leave the chocolate kind of running the show. Like the tea is in support, kind of deepening those flavors underneath it rather than both of them bouncing off each other. I feel like the tea is supportive, but they
Mm.
work really nicely together.
Yeah, and what you're effectively doing for a quick moment is you are infusing the spices in your mouth, you
Sure.
know? Yeah. So you're doing a mini infusion there. Yeah.
So when you do a guided pairing, do you find that the crowd typically has a favorite or something that is the most easy popular choice?
Yes, I really do. I really, I mean, what's interesting is every crowd is has its own personality. So what's interesting, so I'm going to speak very quickly about wine and chocolate. I did the same pairing, like same four pairings, the same winery with two different crowds, and each crowd had a different favorite. That I think is very interesting. I mean, part of this is like being a business owner, you have to understand the people who are your, like, you understand your market and who are the people you're serving, right? And I don't know where it is for you and how far you travel, but I do live in PA, right at the Delaware state line, and Maryland is another like half an hour down the road. So what's amazing is you cross the state line and you're in a different place. Like, I cannot stress that enough. I find that I'm starting to understand people like this one winery. Like, I have a good sense of the crowd I have, the demographic, and effectively, when I go to Scout Cafe, I'm serving Delaware, and I'm gonna have like much younger people also, because the University of Delaware is only half an hour away. I'm having younger people. I'm having also, yeah, people with different lifestyle, different budget. This tends to be a little bit more affordable than the wine and chocolate tastings. And I am finding that there's still a taste for sweeter teas. Like, I do think that there is a taste for sweeter teas or sweeter things in that crowd in Delaware. I'm kind of like, I'm reconsidering, not reconsidering, but like pausing and seeing what people have enjoyed. One small thing, for instance, is I really think I should have like sugar packets or a little bit of honey on every table, and it never occurred to me because isn't chocolate sweet already? Like, sweeter, right? But you'll find that there are certain flavors that come through. But I find that things like rooibos with like some kind of, I don't know, maple flavor, like those things do really well. But yeah, it's
It's like with
I'm
anything
yeah.
else. I mean, it's like with beer or chocolate. We have the pure thing. You've
Yeah.
got single origin chocolate and classic beer styles, but then it's fun to just have inclusions and
Mm-hmm.
other
Mm-hmm.
things added in. And I
Yeah.
suppose anything is like that, tea, no exception.
Yeah. 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 So, but I'm grateful for the opportunity I have, that because of the popularity of our tea and chocolate tastings this year, that I get to learn from the people attending, and then we have a chance to be better at serving, our audience, and yeah, and see where they take us to. And I do feel that, we didn't talk about herb teas, like infusions, but I find it important to end on a, like, with a caffeine free kind of, like, more familiar, something you drink before going to bed. Like peppermint tea has been very, people are really enjoying ending on peppermint tea.
Sure.
So yeah, but yeah.
Well, this has been fun. This is my first time formally pairing tea and chocolate, and I think it's something I've got to dive into deeper. So this is a lot of fun. If folks want to learn more about this from
Mm-hmm.
you, do you do online, like virtual tastings or pairings for tea?
So I did a ticketed one a couple of months ago, but I do offer them like to private clients, when I'll have like maybe once a year somebody is gonna ask for very specifically, oh, somebody cannot drink alcohol in our team. and we want that. The other thing I was gonna say is I do have a tea and chocolate bundle on the website that people can get. So if you go on 37chocolates.com and you click shop, you'll get to my website and you'll see some of these bars being paired up with the teas. But yes, I'm always happy to, give share my experience. I'm very familiar with this brand. Again, like the way I see it is like I'm coming at it from chocolate where I know what I'm looking for, this sense of people and place in craft chocolates. I would encourage people to find also like just like I have health and tea half an hour from my house. They have a website, so it's healthandtea.com. But I would also encourage people to like check in with their local tea suppliers or go to, there are some coffee and tea expos out there and you can find gems. And I have found, at a local coffee and tea expo, a amazing company based in Toronto, amazing puer company based in Virginia. Like there are a lot of tea gems out there. Go out, explore, but definitely try to build approach tea. If you approach tea the way, you and I approach like craft chocolate or craft beer, or, with that, okay, this is a conduit to a relationship and, connection to human being. I mean, that's really valuable in my opinion. I mean, I go back to, let's remember that the white tea is brought to us by a gentleman who wishes he was a monk, and I just like I love that we taste that story, and this is real.
You can listen to my previous conversations with Estelle on beantobarstool.com or your favorite podcast platform. I will put the links to our previous conversations in the show notes so you can get to them easily from there. One quick note before I sign off. I loved the point at which Estelle described the chocolate singing at the same frequency as the tea. That's the kind of language I live for when it comes to describing flavor, so thanks to Estelle for dropping that in there. All right, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Bean to Barstool. Thanks to Estelle for coming on the show today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Bean to Barstool.